to upset people and resourceful enough to figure out how to express what she saw while keeping her mother happy. She often drew pictures to accompany the stories, which meant that she went through an awful lot of red crayons, then colored pencils, then rather fine watercolors and paints. Sometimes the unfortunate fates belonged to people she knew. Often they were about people she didn't. Sometimes she painted pleasant things like unicorns beside pink buildings, a gaggle of boys at a carnival, or friends exploring the woods. But the bits and pieces of her imagination never gained quite as much attention as the grim parts of her. And Eleanor, being a perfectly human woman, did not know how to make sense of Rosemary's gift, though she thought perhaps some men in white coats could help. The house was warm with the smell of fresh cookies on August 27th of Rosemary's 12th year, when a psychologist named Jeffrey and a nurse named Susan, though it isn't important to remember their names, arrived. Her mother promised that she would go to a nice place, a rather prestigious hospital for unique teens and children. This sleepaway clinic, Eleanor said, had music lessons and orange juice and a barn filled with therapeutic horses. Rosemary would only have to take medicine 3 times a day, at least until she began making pictures of flowers and landscapes and sunsets. Flowers, Eleanor added, that were not atop a gravesite. Our story doesn't begin with Rosemary's packed bags or her mother's tearful goodbye or the house getting smaller and smaller as she watched it through the back window of Jeffrey's car. It doesn't begin with the soft jazz music playing through the speakers, or the fast-moving highway, or the car sickness that came with being in a vehicle with someone who changes lanes too often. The story begins about 3 hours into their drive when the doctor and nurse, who may or may not have been very nice people, pulled off the highway to pick up 3 cheeseburgers, a tub of curly fries, and a strawberry milkshake. It was then that Susan looked over her shoulder to find the back seat completely empty. And though they hadn't stopped the car, and there had been nowhere for the girl to go, there was no doubt that Rosemary Thorpe had vanished. Rosemary's face joined the many posters of missing children that decorate police stations around the world. Jeffrey the psychologist and Susan the nurse lost their jobs, of course, as you cannot very well keep your titles if you misplace children. And Eleanor, though a very sweet woman, would forever hide the fact that some small part of her was relieved to no longer be responsible for a girl who thought so often of death. Rosemary Thorpe was part human, you see, but she was also part other. And now, you know how we've arrived at the School for Wayward Fairies. I suppose you can call me Fern, though it isn't my name. The rest is forgettable, as this story is not about me. But, as I am the one telling it, I think I'll call the boarding school Fern's School. Perhaps you know, or maybe you don't. When you're the one telling a secret, you can change any details you like. If the house mother sees I've taken credit for the school she's built, I'm sure she'll be rather upset, but I'm quite sure I'm safe. If she wants to correct me, she'll have to announce to all the world that she is responsible for this wayward home. And this is something she'll never do, for it is a secret. Or it was, until now. Chapter 2. The Vanishing. Rosemary's stomach made a whiny, grumbly noise to tell her it was time for food. "Don't worry," Susan looked over her shoulder and smiled at Rosemary. "We'll pull off at the next stop and get you something." Rosemary knew it would be polite to smile at the nurse, but she didn't feel much like smiling. She continued to stare out the window, eyes unfocused, as the Virginia pines and underbrush and oncoming traffic blurred along the highway. She was too hurt to cry, too angry to react, and too smart to bother with the who or why. Because she knew why, and it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that it had taken her a few years to understand the ins and outs of people and their expectations, but once she zipped her lips and stopped announcing people's deaths, everything should have been fine. Yet, her mother...